Welcome to the Lead Pedal Podcast with your host, Bruce Outridge, where he talks all things trucking. Now let's get rolling.
Hey, how's everybody doing today? Welcome to an edition of the podcast. I'm your host, Bruce Outridge, and today we're going to be talking wages. That's right, truck driver wages. I know, everybody's going, can we have more? Today we're talking about wages, what's going on for truck driver wages, what you can expect, what you think you're going to earn. Man, over the years, I have seen some really good and bad wages, depending on who I've run for, and by area too. So I remember when I used to run for a carrier, and we were running out of Ontario, Canada, and we were back that day. The average wage was about 35 cents a mile, something like that. I think we were at 33 cents a mile, and guys in the East Coast were making like 20 cents a mile. I've heard even in as late as 2010, I'm going to say, guys running for 25 cents a mile for smaller carriers. And that's a big drop. Now, a lot of these carriers go, well, you don't need as much because you live here, in some remote town. Well, the problem is you're not living in a remote town all the time. You're traveling to the bigger cities to deliver freight. And in those bigger cities, that same hamburger is not $5, but it's $15. So you're really hurting yourself if you're not making the proper wages, and you're really not helping yourself. From a carrier standpoint, pay your people properly or else get out of the game. Like if you're just trying to make a buck on you're making a buck on your drivers anyway, because without them, you wouldn't be able to haul any freight. But to scam them again on top of that is just really bad business. And a lot of it's fun and amazing what drivers are doing. So I thought we would do an episode. We're going to be talking with a couple recruiters about pay and how that works with their company. But I just wanted to talk about this. So this came from ZipRecruiter. It came out with some stuff. The average pay. Now, this may be different in your area. It may be different in your country. Okay, so ZipRecruiter works on both sides of the border, and there's, of course, big changes on both sides of the border. I find that Canadian carriers pay a little better than a lot of the American carriers. Not always, just from the ones I deal with and know about, they make pretty good money. Whereas, and also that a lot of carriers in the U.S. are still paying by the mile, where a lot of carriers in Canada are paying by the mile too, but they're switching to more hourly or salary or something like that. And we'll talk about some of those different points. But if you're wondering where you sit, are you the average or not? The average wage for carrier for a truck driver is $27.72 per hour. All right, so if you're in that $25 to $30 range, you're right on the money. All right, there you go. Average age. Now, there's rates as high as $49.76 and as low as $10.10 an hour. That's for the hourly wage. I don't know if you're working for $10 an hour driving a truck. Either your company really sucks or you're really bad at it, or both. I mean, really, folks, it hasn't been $10 an hour since my days of running local back in, I'd say 1985, I was making $10 an hour as a truck driver. And so were a lot of other people. And that was for city work. So there's a reason I went to the highway. They're saying that the average 75% of the drivers in Ontario are making around $31 an hour, and 25% of the drivers are making about $18 an hour. So again, that's going to depend on what you do. Local drivers are normally going to make less money than highway drivers, just because of not only how they're paid, but usually the equipment and the range and all of that kind of stuff. So that's what we see as far as that. So let's just talk about some of the different ways that you are paid. First of all, salary. Hourly is the first one. Let's go start with the first one is hourly. All right. So if you're paid by the hour, you're paid by the hour. And a lot of people are going to that so that you can take away this whole detention time problem we're having. But again, it's not always feasible, right? So we'll see how it goes. A lot of drivers actually prefer to be paid by the mile because you can get more miles and then you can get hours, right? So some are looking at you could run a longer day. So I depends how it works out for you and your company. Per mile, so there's practical miles, there's hub miles, and there's what they call household fixed miles. So household fixed miles is basically a computer program. It tells you it's so many miles from A to B, and that's what you're getting paid. Practical miles is a little better. They go, it's A to B, there's the X for the amount of miles, but you know what? We're going to add on an extra 100 miles because we know you're going to get lost or you have to go outside of town or whatever it might be. And then, of course, there's hub miles, which is what I used to run, where you kind of get paid whatever your hub is, which is the best because if you get lost for half a day, you still get paid. And, of course, within that is different mileages depending on the contract. So a lot of owner-operators get paid a certain amount of miles when they're loaded. They get all their miles when they're loaded, but they get paid kind of a half rate or something when they're empty. So they get paid some empty miles or whatever. So you got to watch that. I mean, that's all part of being a professional trucker and understanding what you're doing, right? And a lot of new drivers are not understanding that. You're not thinking about those kind of things. These are all things that are built in. Go read any website for drivers and find out exactly how they're paid, and you'll see there's a lot of fine print in a lot of these contracts. So hourly and per mile are probably the most ones out there. Salary is one that I used to run on, and I actually love it. And, it's amazing. Even with salary, guys seem to want to take advantage. Why do you want to take advantage of everything? Like, just do the job. Do your job the best way. The money will follow. Everybody's trying to make this extra buck. And I understand a buck's important. I'm not saying that it's not important. I'm just saying that I see more people spend more time trying to figure out how to get an extra dollar out of somebody than doing just a good job and earning the dollar properly. So I used to be on salary. Our company was on salary. It was based on 60 hours a work week. And it was so much. It was really nice. I mean, you can buy a house with that, because you got something steady. You're like an office employee, which was really cool. Now, most guys are always trying to cheat the system, right? So if we were paid 60. We had guys who go, they're always trying to make their work week end 55 hours or less. So they're always like up 5 hours, right? Guys whine about how much. Boy, if you make them work an extra 2 hours above that 60, they're whining. They forget that every other week they left at 50, and now this week you got to work 62 or 65 because you're in a snowstorm, and they're all panicking about it. So salary is great. Not a lot of companies offer it. The good companies offer it. Friends, hey, thanks for joining us. Hope you enjoyed that episode of the podcast. We know that it's important. Wages are always talked about, and hopefully that helps you decide where you are. And if your company's paying you too low, might be time to switch. If they're paying you too high, keep doing what you're doing. All right, my friends, talk to you later. Subscribe on our whatever platform you're on listening to us, and we will talk to you later. Bye for now.
This has been another episode of the Lead Pedal Podcast. For more information or to subscribe to the podcast, visit theleadpedalpodcast.com and be sure to follow the podcast on Facebook and Twitter.